Hi, this is Pablo Roldos, co-founder and CEO of Estabild. Estabild is a digital platform for construction project stakeholders to engage with the progress of development. Before we get started, I'll give you a little bit background about myself. I've worked in the construction industry since 2009, and I've been very lucky to witness firsthand the rapid pace of embracement and technology adoption in the construction industry, especially in the past 2 to 3 years. Where the industry has been really embracing technology. And the current opportunity that we're facing is that it's not going to be only for the operational level only, but it's also going to be for the adjacent market segments. They're going to start benefiting from the technology adoption, and that's stakeholders in construction projects. So let's get started talking about the industry as a whole. As you might be aware, construction is one of the biggest sectors in the world. Here you can see a graph on how the industry spends, what's the construction industry spend worldwide. The graph is in trillion euros. The staggering fact here is that it has around 4% growth year over year and has been that since the past years, and it's the same for the future. And that's the forecast that the industry experts give. It's an 11 trillion euro market, huge. It represents 13% of the global GDP, and it actually employs 1 out of 14 workers in the global stage. It's a very large industry, as you can tell. The other staggering fact is that it only has 5% construction revenues invested in technology, which is around 55% less than other sectors. So very reduced, and also the investment on research and development is around 5 to 10 times less than other sectors as well. The technology adoption trend is changing, as I explained in the introduction, and you can see this in this chart, which represents the number of deals and the amount of money being invested in tech companies. As you can see, we can see the hockey stick, which is something that we all like to see in the industries. The great thing in this hockey stick is that it's already happening, so it's not a forecast, it's currently happening. The cumulative annual growth rate between 2015 and 2018 was around 87%, which is another staggering fact, which means that the industry is experiencing a huge technology adoption, and that's great for the industry. And just to put it in context, where to show that the industry is still behind, is that fintech, for instance, received 14 times more funding than tech in 2018. And when you compare the industries side by side in terms of the size of the industry, it's only twice bigger financial services than the construction itself. So that shows how the industry is underfunded and it's catching up with the technology adoption wave. Most of the innovation and tech adoption is happening at the operational focus. So here in this chart, I show how most of it is within the general contractors, where they operate with their teams, with design, subcontractors, and vendors. They have their own set of tools, and they're really embracing technology. And the opportunities for the next players that are around the construction execution itself, which is mostly the owners. It could be developers if we're talking about real estate development, for instance. And they have a challenge to keep up with the progress of development, because they're not only engaging with one general contractor, for instance, they have multiple general contractors, and each of them have their own ways of working, and it becomes more complicated when you have a portfolio of projects being executed. These owners and developers have their own stakeholders around them, which they all are interested on the outcome of the project and what the performance of the execution. As you might know, construction has a bad reputation when it comes to cost overruns and schedule delays. So everyone here is on the lookout on how things are going. And to make things a little bit worse, you also have other agencies that are not directly linked to the performance of the project itself, but they're still somehow or another interested on understanding how things are going. Now I'm going to go a little bit more in depth regarding the stakeholder dynamics, just to show the interdependencies, how they're mapped out between the key stakeholders. Here is very small letters, so I'm not expecting you guys to read this text. I'll just say it out loud. But here's the contractors where, as I explained earlier, they have their own set of tools, and most of them are helping them to manage the projects downward in the value chain. And they deal with the subcontractors, which are the workers, materials and equipment, and the design team as well. Then we have this group of facilitators that basically sit in between the contractors that are executing the work and then the owners that own the project. And these are the owner representatives, which is basically a project management function. And these guys have to constantly be on top of the execution of the project and facilitating the payments in order to get the contractor some liquidity once the tasks gets completed. The owners don't have it easy. Also, they have a kind of a complex mix of partnerships. It's not only property developers, they might have investors that provide equity, and also even property managers, and they have some kind of joint venture together. So all these stakeholders are also somehow or another vested on how the execution of the projects is going on. And then we have the tenants, which are basically end users if you're leasing the property, or you have the clients who you're selling the property, if that's the line of business for the property developers. And then the equity pool sometimes is not enough capital, so you have to recur to lenders that will give you additional liquidity, and that's normally via banks and private loans. And these institutions are also somehow or another linked to the execution of the construction project. So the opportunity here is, how do we make all these electronic payments an automatic system where it gets directly dispersed, the payments to from the lenders or the equity pool to the workers and the suppliers and vendors. And the only way to make that happen is really with automatic verification that actually confirms that the scope of work has been completed, and then the payment can be dispersed. So this is the opportunity for the stakeholders realm. In order to provide a verticalized solution, you need to have two components that are very important. One is proprietary data in terms of who owns the data and who can access to it, and has to be high quality. And the other one is tech integration, making sure that the solution that is going to be solving these issues, it's seamlessly integrated with the workflow of construction project. For the future state, this is how construction will become an orchestrated economy by having autonomous supply chains, which basically means that supply chains will be orchestrated end-to-end by integrated data pools. And this happens in 3 phases. The phase number 1 is as it's currently being solved with isolated data pools, and that's that the new data improves the transparency and will solve known problems with simple immediate solutions that don't really demand a lot of behavioral change. Phase 2 is connected data pools, which is workflows that will be connected. Transparency will spread to embrace the entire process, and data will be used to improve the supply chain efficiencies. And in phase 3, which is the consolidated data pools, this is how the industry leaders will control the emerging data pools to integrate those workflows and gain full visibility for having an end-to-end market dynamics. This is an example of how the past in the old economy, things are currently working. They're isolated, they work in silos, they don't really talk to each of different phases with stakeholders around it. And that's part of the old economy. And the new proposal is the orchestrated economy, which is mostly driven by real-time feedback. And in this environment, the industry leaders will be those businesses that can significantly control one or more of the 3 digital assets, which are intelligence, that's meaning around real-time optimization of decision-making. The second one is protocols with infrastructure for facilitating the information, streamline and transactional payments. And the third one is fulfillment, which is around optimized supply and operational fulfillment of operations. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for the time. And let's stay connected in case you guys are interested to learn more about how Estabild is helping construction project stakeholders streamline the construction projects information. Thanks so much.